Hi everybody, hope you're doing marvellously well. Our good friend Mel, who I'm sure you've noticed has been playing drums and doing video content with us over the last couple of months, has created a video on how to make a homemade sub kick. Back in the olden days of when I was a teenager in the late 80s and early 90s, when I first started recording, we would take one of the spare speakers, drivers for NS10s, of which everybody had an NS10. Because every studio had NS10s and everybody had to have spare drivers, spare speakers, because we would blow them up because they couldn't take the super, super lows and Bob's your uncle, they'd be done. So we all had a spare one and we'd all like jimmy rig and create these sub kicks. Well, Mel is going to show you how to do that, how to create a sub kick, an affordable version of a sub kick mic for your kick drum.
Hey, what's up everyone? I'm Mel with Produce Like a Pro, and in this video, I'm gonna be teaching y'all how to make a sub kick with a speaker and an XLR cable. Just a short disclaimer, you might need a soldering iron depending on what speaker you end up using, but I'm gonna show you both methods just in case you end up getting a speaker that allows you to do it without a soldering iron. So before y'all tune out, let me tell you what a sub kick is and why it might be useful to you. A sub kick is a microphone made popular by Yamaha used to capture sub-low frequencies of an instrument or a source. Traditionally, it's used to capture the sub-low frequencies of a kick drum. So you might be asking yourself, why would I want to use a sub kick if my Audix D6, my Beta 52, my Beta 91, or all of my kick drum mics capture the low end quite fine? Well, the reason is now you can use a 2-mic setup to easily capture the low-end information that is focused on low-end information while focusing your mics like the D6 or the 52 or 91 or what have you to capture the click or the attack of your kick drum. And using a sub kick will ultimately lead to a bigger, more fuller sounding kick. This is especially useful in genres like rock, funk, dance, or even EDM if you're combining live drums, or you might be creating samples where you need huge low end. Basically genres where the kick drum is the driving force of the song. This is also especially useful in a 2-mic setup for miking up a kick drum. Like I said earlier, now you can use your primary kick-in microphone to focus on that attack rather than trying to use a singular mic placement to compromise for both bottom end and attack. This is also useful and cool because it allows you to use mics like the 57 or the 58 or just dynamic microphones that don't have a low end response to now be the focus of that attack. So if you're still here, I take it you're interested in the sub kick and you're interested in probably trying to make one. So let me show you how to do just that. So first off, you're gonna need a speaker. I found a home entertainment speaker from my family sitting in my garage, and we were selling it at a garage sale for about $15 to $25. I take it you could find this at places like Goodwill, thrift stores, or garage sales. And basically you're looking for a passive speaker with a positive and negative input, usually traditionally powered by a power amp from a home theater system. And next, you're gonna need an XLR cable. In this case, I cut this side of the XLR cable and used this side of the XLR cable to connect to the speaker. All right, so let's jump over to the workbench and I'll show you guys how to do it. In order to make a sub kick, you're going to need the following items. One, you're going to need a speaker. It can be a speaker like this in a tower formation with a tweeter and a mid-range driver, or if you're able to acquire a speaker solo, you can use something like this. But the only caveat is you're gonna have to find a way to mount it. Or you can use a speaker like this that is in a tower formation as well. The main difference between this speaker and this speaker is this speaker has a plus and minus or positive and negative connection for the power amp, whereas this speaker has a bare wire output. The easiest method that I'm going to teach you is the solderless method, and that involves if you find a speaker with a positive and negative connection rather than the bare wire connection or the independent speaker. So to start off, you're going to need just the speaker unit, a screwdriver, and an XLR cable. You're going to use the XLR cable to connect this into your interface or preamp. So this is the male connection, which will connect to your interface. So we're gonna leave that side alone. And then we are going to connect this side of the cable to the speaker. So in order to do that, you're going to cut it. So voila, I've cut the cable over here, leaving myself bare wire and the male connection that will plug into my interface. Here, it's very simple. If your cable has different leads, you are going to connect the red lead to the red positive connection. If your XLR cable is not color-coded, you're going to connect pin 2. And if you have a cable tester, you can test pin 2 here. And then you're going to take the remaining wire and short it with the ground or bare copper cable, as you can see here. We're going to connect those two units, those two cables, and wrap that to give yourself the red lead. And that is what you're going to do to connect to the sub-kit. So after you've connected that to the positive and negative connections, we're going to test if the speaker works with the interface. So I'm going to plug this into my interface to see if I have any signal. So now that we've established that this has a working connection to our interface, we are going to disconnect this tweeter, which is going to pick up frequencies that we don't need, from the speaker unit. So in order to do that, I'm going to unplug this from my interface. The next thing that we're going to do is simply remove the top part of the speaker. And now you're going to remove the tweeter. As you can see, the tweeter might be connected with cables at the bottom over here. All that we need to do is break the circuit and disconnect one. You can disconnect two. That would probably be best. And if you have electrical tape, that would be the best way to just isolate the cable. So I'm going to do just that and isolate the cable so it doesn't complete another circuit. Now that I've broken the circuit, the tweeter should not function anymore. And I might just leave it in here just because it's easier than gutting the speaker. But you don't have to leave your tweeter in there. Now let's test if the mid-range driver is still connected to the circuit. Cool. So it seems as if it is still picking up sound, and we can tell that the tweeter is not. So with that being said, you are done building your sub-kit. Now all you have to do is make sure that your leads from your XLR cable that was cut is connected to negative, green, and copper, and red is connected to red. And if you can't identify the cable, you can use a cable tester to test which lead is lead 1 and lead 2, and you're going to plug lead 2 into the positive outlet. So that's that for the solderless method. Let's head over to the next speaker so I can show you guys what to do. The next speaker that I happened upon was a similar speaker to the previous one, but it has bare wire coming out of it. So I've already removed the tweeter from the circuit, so only the bottom speaker is active. So next up, we're gonna do a similar thing where we will test the bare wire with the circuit. So right now, I'm simply just doing a test, and I'm going to connect red to red, and ground or black to the green. So for the time being, I'm just twisting these wires. Now I'm going to test if the woofer or sub-kit still makes the connection. As you can tell, the speaker is working and picking up sound. Then move on to the next stage of the process. At this point, you're not going to want bare wire and just the speaker to stay afloat, because that's probably not the best thing to do in a studio workflow, even though you're doing this DIY. And shorting these cables is not a good thing. And we're going to solder these cables. I'm going to use the little cable tie here as management. And if you know how to solder, this is fairly easy. All that you're going to do is take your solder gun or solder iron and connect red to red, as I said previously, and ground and green to the ground or black or negative lead. So I'm going to quickly solder these connections. After I'm done with the first lead connection, I'm going to tape that so it doesn't short against anything. So I'm going to take some electrical tape. And then conversely, I'm going to solder these two wires together. So now that I've soldered very poorly my ground to the negative input, I'm going to tape that as well. As you can tell, this is very makeshift, but all we really need to do is make sure those wires have a connection so you do not have any shortage occurring when you create. Cool, so now let's test the connection cool. It still works, and the subkick is picking up sound. So for our last example, if you happen upon a speaker like this, it's very easy to turn this into a subkick as you just follow the same procedure. But in this case, you don't have a positive and negative. You just have the two wires from the speaker. All right, so midway through filming this, I've discovered that this speaker does not have any indicator whether or not it is positive or negative on its connectors. So I'm gonna show you guys how to test which side is positive and negative. So I have a set of wire testers here. You can actually just find a way to connect the wire to each end. So what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna connect each side of the wire tester here to one side and the other side. And I'm going to take these leads and get a battery. I'm only using a AA battery in something that's not like completely charged. If you use something with fully charged, you might burn out your speaker. So what we're gonna do is we're gonna see which direction the speaker moves in. So I'm gonna slightly angle this for the purposes of the video. So now we have connection 1 and connection 2, the red or the black connection. And we're gonna connect this to the positive. We're gonna connect one end to the negative, and then we're gonna connect one end to the positive. We are not going to hold it. If we hold it, we will burn out the speaker. So I'm just gonna lightly tap it. So right now I'm tapping and the speaker is moving backwards. Since the speaker is moving backwards, I know that this connection here, which is this connection here, is the negative connection. And I can deduce that this is the positive connection. So let's test that theory. So I said that this wire now is the positive connection, and this is the negative because the speaker moved backwards. So let's connect this here, positive part of the battery. The speaker is moving forward. From my perspectives, it's a little hard to tell, but the speaker is moving forward. So I can deduce that this is the positive connection. And also just letting y'all know that you actually can wire these up in reverse. The only thing that will happen is your phase of the subkick will be in reverse, which you can flip in post, but if we want this to work out correctly, let's just get it right at the start. So the inside of this cable is red and blue. So what I'm gonna do is I'm actually going to separate these leads out, and then the red cable is going to connect independently, and then the blue cable and the ground or bare copper wire is going to connect on its own. That being said, I'm just going to connect the red to the positive and the blue to the negative. So we've connected that. Now let's connect the copper cable. So now that I've connected these leads together, I'm just going to tape off the ends just to make sure they don't come up in contact with each other. So let's do that. Let's separate these two. So awesome. We can test that the subkick, our homemade subkick, works. The only thing that I'm not able to completely teach, because y'all have to get creative since this is DIY, is mounting the subkick to a stand, which is the personal reason I opt for using the speaker enclosure as my stand, as I can easily place this 6 inches away from a kick drum. So with that being said, now that I've built 3 versions of the subkick for y'all, let's jump into testing it out with our drums. So there you have it. Let me know if you guys heard a difference. I hope you guys did, and I really hope the sub kick made a difference in this. Otherwise, this whole video is pointless now, isn't it? And if you guys dug the examples, please let me know which combinations and drums you guys preferred in the comment section. If you guys want to download the cheat sheet on how to build the sub kick in our little PDF, please hit the description below. And if you're an Academy member, feel free to download the samples of the kits that we recorded today in this video. So there you have it, guys. That's how you make a sub kick DIY yourself for cheap with an XLR, a home theater speaker, and maybe a soldering iron. It's not that hard. Hope you guys enjoyed this video, and let me know in the comments if you did. I've used the sub kick many times in my rock productions and even some of my metal productions, and I think it's great, and I think it adds a lot of bottom end to my kicks. Again, this is Mel from Produce Like a Pro. Hit the thumbs up button if you enjoyed this video. Hit the sub button if you haven't already. Ring that bell for notifications, and leave a comment down below like I told you the past 3 times. Hope you had fun hanging out, and I'll catch you on the next one.
So this is how it all started. I mean, the NS10 speaker was the original sub kick. I think when I first started, the first thing I ever recorded was probably late 80s as a teenager, early 90s. And I remember sub kicks were always NS10 speakers. Because in those days, every single studio I ever went to in the UK had a pair of NS10s. They were just de rigueur. They were the most standard thing you could see. So every studio had a pair of NS10s and then had a bunch of spare drivers from when you blew up the speakers. Whenever that would happen. I mean, now, of course, these things are probably worth a fortune. They're so rare now. But at the time, they were really super commonplace. So this is how you made it. You know, this one's obviously quite elaborate, and they've done like a really cool thing, but I've seen ones where it's just like taped to it. I've seen everything. But this is the original sub kick. And I know Yamaha for a while, if they still do, built their version of the sub kick. And we also have one at Spitfire, but it's not an NS10, but it's somebody else's version of it. But yeah, this is the original sub kick speaker that I remember being in every single studio. Yep, they started producing the sub kick because everyone used their speakers. And it was basically just because they were commonplace. Every studio had at least 1 pair, if not 2 or 3 pairs of NS10s, and every studio I ever worked at had tons of these as spare speakers for when we blew them up. Because they weren't very good at reproducing low end, but anybody that understands a microphone is like, that's essentially a dynamic microphone. That's all it is. A dynamic microphone is just a cone that does this when hit by, by sound waves that you put in reverse. It's a speaker. A speaker's a microphone, a microphone's a speaker.